Hello, and welcome everybody. This is STX_live, bringing you the latest and greatest in Dungeon Talk. Sorry for the late start. It's pretty late, but today is going to be pretty cool or fun because we're bringing Dungeon Talk back. We haven't done a Dungeon Talk in months. I feel like it's been years, but I haven't been streaming for years, so it's definitely been months. Basically, what Dungeon Talk is a way for us to talk Dungeons and Dragons in kind of like a podcast form, and do things. In this case, we're going to be doing some recaps because there's a lot happening this month, and we're going to use Dungeon Talks as a way to kind of alleviate some of the stuff in case you miss an episode or you aren't quite sure of what exactly might have happened, or you just want some like behind the scenes stuff. If I know any of the answers to those questions, I will be sure to let you all know. But overall, yeah, we're gonna start out first with let's start out with the Curse of Strahd, because that was the first episode this past Tuesday. Not yesterday, obviously, but last week's Tuesday. Curse of Strahd aired its chapter 3, which was titled A Meeting with a Devil, I think that's what I called it. Don't quote me. But yes, we'll start with that one, and I'll just read a quick synopsis so we can, open up the question and answers portion of the session, or the podcast, however you want to call it. But yes, Curse of Strahd, Chapter 3. Our heroes are met by Lady St. Cloud with open arms to Castle Ravenclaw. After a brief wardrobe change for the two ladies present, she directs them to the dining hall. There they are met by a man of Gothic proportions, playing the classical organ, who ultimately turns to greet his guests. He introduces himself as Strahd, the man whom the party has been dying to meet. A game which entails traversing through his castle of horrors to try... Oh, sorry, I completely missed a line. As some of the party begins to feast in the festivities, Strahd proceeds to inform them that he would like to play a game. A game which entails traversing through his castle of horrors to try and locate the companions that were separated from the group upon arriving at Barovia. He leaves the party with time to consider, and with very minimum convincing, the group agrees to take Strahd up on his offer. Noted, this is after he informs them they will not partake in any harm that befalls them due to his hands. However, the castle itself has many secrets just awaiting to attack. Relatively soon into the search, the gang is separated, thanks mostly to Klugel, as he goes off in a direction much different than Milo and the ladies. This proves to be advantageous as they are able to divide and conquer the castle and some of its dark corners, if you will. Klugel being one of the ones to encounter two vampire spawns early on. As Mazera confronts a vampire spawn of her own and is bitten, the party continues and ultimately regroups to find that Lord North has become a vampire himself. When Mazera goes to attack this man, even though she misses with her attack, something deep within her speaks out and says she cannot do harm to this man just yet. She informs the party, even though it may prove to be detrimental to her survivability, as they are able to get the upper hand on Lord North and hopefully put a chapter of this horror show behind them. Now, we ended on a climax mostly because for these sessions we're trying to stick to relatively 3 hours. We don't really want to push too far left or right on that. And I think that kind of works for us because I've done sessions in the past that have been 6 hours. I've done sessions that have been 4 hours, and three kind of is like that like that good spot, that spot where not a lot of people are what's the word, losing interest. It's not that they're losing interest in the story, it's just that the story has progressed so long that they can't their attention spans kind of waver a bit. So I've found that 3 hours is kind of like the golden ticket. But yeah, it's let's just talk about Curse of Strahd a little bit. It's been a fun campaign so far. I pitched the idea a couple of weeks. Well, it would be like, considering we did chapter 3. This would have been roughly 2 months ago. I pitched the idea, and I'm a 4-hour man myself. 4 hours is good, yes, but I have the delicacy of timing to worry about because we work with a cast and crew that traverse many different time zones. Four kind of is like it's a it can push it in some people's areas, especially when we're working with people that are playing from like England. So I try and make it 3 only because it kind of works better for everybody's schedule. And then because we're on this 2-week rotation, it usually gives you like something to look forward to. Usually if you have like a really long 4 to 6 hour session, you can kind of go more than 2 weeks without needing another Dungeons and Dragons fix. At least that's me. But yes, so the month of May, we are introducing 3 new campaigns or sessions, or however you want to call them. One of them being Final Fantasy VII, The Last Ancient, which will debut tomorrow at 12 to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That one's one that we were working on for a bit now, and still working through some of the kinks, which I'm pretty sure the first few episodes of that are going to be kind of rough because we're introducing a lot of things that D&D doesn't necessarily give you a handbook to do. So it's going to be fun because a lot of us, especially the ones that are playing in this session, really, really love Final Fantasy. And for those that are in the session and don't quite share our same vigor for for Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and all the others, they still enjoy it enough to where they're gonna have fun in this campaign. And a lot of it is going to be new for us because when it comes to Final Fantasy VII, you want to have like those things that make it feel like you're actually playing Final Fantasy VII, if you know what I'm talking about. And for us, you gotta have some Moogles, you gotta have some Chocobos, you gotta have like materia, because that was a big thing for Final Fantasy VII. Like, all those things have to be incorporated into the D&D setting, so it can be, there's a bit of a workaround, if you know what I'm saying. So that one's gonna be fun. We're gonna work through the kinks, and we're just gonna make that show like super awesome. And considering it takes place years after Advent Children and the remake that came out, if you want to consider that the canon for this world, there's going to be a lot of things that stay true to the original, as well as some interesting like new twists that we hope to bring out in that. So that's going to be fun. That one starts tomorrow. We are also going to be introducing a new kind of like Magic Academy type session called Rise of Sage Mist, which a little bit of backstory about this, and again, I don't mean to bounce all over the place because we're supposed to be talking about Strahd right now, but we'll get back to that. We got time. Rise, yes, Rise of Strahd, Rise of Strahd. Oh gosh, that was that's the next campaign that we go back into when they kill Strahd, and then I have to like re-kill him again because he comes back from the dead. No, I'm joking. But Rise of Sage Mist is a special academy that takes place in Sage Mist City, which is located kind of like to the southeast of the continent of Diademia. This is well after the Diademia War, which is another thing that we're going to talk about here shortly, because there's just a lot. Rise of Strahd, yes. But there's just a lot of things that we have to cover, because this is all kind of like homebrew content. So I'm kind of going with the flow from our first campaign, which we didn't air because we pretty much did it. Everyone would come to my house and we would have our sessions, and we were all relatively new to Dungeons and Dragons at the time. Like, some of us had played before, obviously, but none of us had did like a persistent campaign to what we were planning on doing at the time. So that was all new, and I had the misfortune of learning some basically, as a dungeon master, you don't know all the rules right away, and then you realize soon on that some things can be relatively broken if you give them to characters too soon in the game. Like a freaking 1d20 axe that does 1d20 damage. Yeah, that was not a good time. It was not a good day when you give it to a barbarian, nonetheless. So that basically, okay, so if FNH Paul is in the chat, I'm sorry that I ever gave you that axe, because I was a stupid DM and I did not know how powerful it was. But basically, it was one of those things where like you say it and you don't realize how it translates on paper. Like, he was asking me something and I was thinking a completely different thing on what he was building, until we were having these encounters and he was just pumping out some really high damage, like super high. Like, everybody else was doing like mediocre damage, and he was just pumping out like heavy hits, especially when he crit. And I was just like, how are you doing so much damage? And then I look at the axe and I'm like, oh my freaking goodness, like we need to destroy this thing. We need to go to the pits of Mordor and get rid of this freaking blasphemous axe from, I don't even, like, it was bad. So ultimately I ended up nerfing the axe with some like DM BS, more or less. Basically, that's what FNH Paul claims to this day, and I kind of agreed to it, but we had to get rid of X. Like, that was we weren't going another session with him pumping out that much damage, because basically I was making these bosses that had like buku's amount of HP, because I wanted it to last long enough for an encounter. Like, it was bad. We're not going back there. We're not handing out any more 1d20s for damage. Like, that's not a thing. So, so long story short, we had a lot of hiccups, but in the making of that first campaign, we kind of developed like rough patch of different places and other things of that nature. So whenever I pitched the idea for campaign 2 taking place before campaign 1 ever did, it's kind of cool to be able to bring in some of those notes from the first campaign that only like the OG players are gonna know about, because like they were there for it to see like them come into fruition. So that's fun. That's cool. But Sage Mist City was a very big part of that campaign, at least for a bit, because they had to make their way to Sagemouth City to try and like stop the big bad and whatnot. Like basic. But what we didn't get to dive into too deeply was the academy that was there. And the academy was basically just this wizarding academy that taught really rich snob children to use magic. Basic premise. Because you have all your lords and your ladies, and then they have kids, and then they send them to the Sagemouth's academy, and then they learn magic. Like, that's the basic premise. But because our party wasn't necessarily like mages, and some of them were on the run, like they spent maybe one session in the actual academy, and I think they killed a bunch of people and students and teachers. I think that was like, there was like 69 head counts, like head decapitations, if I remember correctly. But yes, it was a massacre at the school. So nothing to worry about now for the people who's actually joining the Rise of Sagemouth, but just know in the future there's going to be a lot of head counts. Just put that in the back of your mind for this reaches. Just forget about it. It's a lot of kids. A lot of kids died that day. I'm just saying. They were possessed, but they died. So that's going to be cool to introduce more on what exactly that academy is about. The final campaign that we're introducing is Diademia Aftermath, and this is a kind of like a little pocket campaign that we're doing because season 2 of Tales of Diademia, which starts next Saturday, be there, takes place a year after season 1. So I have this whole year to kind of like play with. So I decided to make Diademia Aftermath, which is going to start detailing some of the things that's kind of like happening outside of the control of the main characters. And basically they're like the Guardians of the Galaxy, except they're pirates. And it's going to be super awesome because, as everyone knows, I love fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, true statement. But that's going to be cool because there's a lot to some of the characters that wasn't able to be fleshed out fully in season 1 that hopefully can get fleshed out a little bit more through these Diademia Aftermath seasons. You and me both, brother. Nice. But yes, it's like my obsession is very, very high. But where was my brain going? But anyways, Diademia Aftermath takes place within that year, so give or take, we can make it last however long or short the players kind of want to go in that direction with it. But that's going to be cool. That one's going to be airing the 17th of this month, which is a Monday if I'm not mistaken. And that one will continue on a bi-weekly Monday type, cycle. Basically all of these shows will cycle every 2 weeks. So Final Fantasy, it airs tomorrow. It won't air again until another 2 Thursdays from now. And then same for Rise of Sagemouth, if we're able to actually debut that one this Sunday, which I'll find out more here shortly if we have enough people. But if not, it'll just get pushed back to the same week that Diademia Aftermath is starting. So that's... I don't want to rush any of the characters or any of the players for making characters and all that other stuff. So we'll play that one by ear. Yes. So are there questions for Curse of Strahd? Because I know there was a couple of people that were like, well, if Mazeroth's bitten by a vampire spawn, then how come she couldn't attack the Lord and all this other stuff? And it kind of comes down to like interpretation. If you have enough people, you say. Yes. So we have a running cast, and again, most of us are in the military, and most of us are stationed like in separate parts of the world, being either England or the East Coast or here. We're kind of like smattered all over the place. And when it comes to coordinating all of our schedules, when you have to like pair in like military scheduling, it can get pretty difficult. So some some players for the cast thought that they would be able to play more sessions than they could, and then their schedule got swapped, and then they realized that they're not going to be able to. So we kind of play them by ear based on that. One of our guys, to use an example, in season 1 of Tales of Diademia, got switched to weekend shift, so his character kind of had to like, you know, deuce out. He was still there, but he had to kind of like deuce out because like he was going to be working when the sessions were airing. So I try and like work with everybody's schedule and then move them around depending. So another prime example is Desmodo. He is having a baby. He himself is not having a child. His wife is. We're not that advanced yet. But because of this, he's also going to be changing around his shift. So I moved his character, which normally would play on that Saturday for Tales of Diademia, to the Monday session for Diademia Aftermath, and kind of like worked his character into this side plot of campaign. So I try and work with everybody. Not saying that it always works out that way, but for the most part, we're pretty flexible. I think we're pretty flexible. I had to actually tell Queen, well, not tell Queen. I had to make sure Queen was okay with the amount of sessions that she was in, which I think she is still in 5 of the 6 sessions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's in Diademia Aftermath. She's in Curse of Strahd. She's in Tales of Diademia. She's in Waterdeep. She was going to be in Rise of Sage Mist, but I was like, girl, you're going to be in 3 sessions a week, plus all the other sessions that we have that we don't even stream. So you need to make sure. Like, it's different for me because I have a D&D addiction, and I don't mind doing 3 sessions a week, but I just had to make sure with her that she understood like how frequently she was going to be here. Like, it was going to be all the time. But yes, she is a very, very busy girl. But it's kind of cool because these are all, some of the cast members are new, like Brent. And it's interesting because like, it's cool when you get to play with people that you're familiar with, and also cool like with new people, and character dynamics, like they're so different. And just by switching just a couple of the people that are in each of our sessions, being that like FNH Paul and Glittering Moon Elf are in the Curse of Strahd campaign together. Like, I think that's the only one that y'all are together in. The character dynamics in that are completely different than if you take FNH Paul in like Tales of Diademia with other people that he's played with in previous campaigns. Like, it's all subjective, and it's all different, and it's all cool because just by switching like 1 or 2 people, now you have like this whole new character flow, and I kind of like it because it's really interesting that way. But again, I am digressing from Curse of Strahd, but basically Curse of Strahd, our Curse of Strahd campaign, is going to continue on this 2-week-ish cycle, and we're just gonna progressively go through the campaign book for Curse of Strahd, if that makes sense. And then if the players want to continue with the the expansion for, or the follow-on story for, that's something that we can take into consideration. If everybody doesn't want to do it, then we can also work in new people, but that one's going to be like flexible regardless. It is one of, I think, two of our podcast sessions. So in our podcast sessions, we rely less on the maps and the things of that nature, and it's more focused on role play and kind of like describing the areas that you're in. It makes it easier with the campaign books because they kind of give it all to you. You just have to read it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a different take because for me as a DM, I think the campaign books are slightly easier to work with than the homebrew sessions, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, it all kind of like blends in together, and the sessions just like become themselves. Like for the most part, most of these sessions when I do them, I don't like, I have an idea of where I want them to go, but typically the players kind of like direct exactly how it shapes. So it's kind of interesting because there's like certain things that I know I want to introduce, and then depending on how the characters like work around it that episode, we may or may not get to it. It's very hard to explain, but also very interesting because I can tell you for each of my sessions, I don't necessarily know how all of them will end. I know how some of them will end, but I don't know how all of them will end, and that's kind of cool. Let's see. Moving on from Curse of Strahd, we have the Waterdeep episode, which was aired last Friday. And that one was pretty, what's it called? Relative in the fact that the group consisting of Kano, Klugel's in Curse of Strahd. Kano, Attila, Elira, and who am I missing? I guess it would be a mixture between Pops and Haddocks. So Kev's character, Pops, should be coming back not this Friday, but the next Friday. I don't know. I have to check with him. I have to check. He took leave, so his character's been not in the last two episodes. And then one of our guys, again, the one having the baby, is getting his schedule changed for this month, so we kind of had to like work his character out of the setting, if that makes sense. But yeah, so the group is able to infiltrate the Xanathar Guild, and upon entering the sewers, which happened to be the cordon area that they had encountered previously, they navigate their way through, more so a lot of the sewers than they probably needed to. But anyways, ultimately they navigate their way through, and they encounter this half orc. I think he's a wizard or sorcerer. He's one of those. Warlock? I don't know. He's something. Some kind of magic user who was interrogating Floon, who was being mistaken for Rainier. The names in Waterdeep like get me every time. That last episode was so great. Which one? For Waterdeep or for Curse of Strahd? Which one, Moon Elf? Tell me. The character dynamics are just insane in all of these episodes because yes, Waterdeep was crazy, and I think I had a DM brain fart because there's certain things that happen in sessions, and because I don't read the description for them, I just like let them go. And it wasn't until after that I realized that as soon as like Elira attacks when she was invisible, like her invisibility would cancel out. But I pretty much just had her invisible that whole like session, and then like yeah. So that's a thing. I mean, that's not like a future thing. Like I'll probably remember that from now on. But that was the thing that happened for that last episode. But there was a lot of different like crazy happenings between characters that was just like way too funny to even even consider. But ultimately they're able to save Floon. They're also able to find Ramir, who was also being kind of like tortured, and he was missing an arm, so I'm pretty sure he was being butchered by one of those guys. Anyways, they're able to make their way out. Kano injures himself. Like all of this stuff is like stuff you can't even like make up because it happens on the fly. And like I can assure you, when I started the session Friday, I did not see it going the way it did. Like I had an idea, but like it just took hard turns left and right. I was just like, I'm here for the ride. Like, but it was fun. So ultimately they're able to get them out of there. They're able to take Ramir to the med wards. They're able to get their payment from Volo, who surprisingly had the money. Might be a contribution from the previous episode, but they're also finally able to get the deed to Volo's estate, which was kind of like hush hush told to Attila at the beginning of session 1, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a good episode. A lot happened. Freaking possessed were rats in the sewers. Like you can't make it up. But yes, Waterdeep was cool. And then, okay, so I don't think y'all are ready for exactly what happened in Tales of Diademia last Saturday. Like, we hit on a lot of points. I felt almost like we were a Studio Ghibli movie where we were taking like the last few minutes of the season, or in this case, a Studio Ghibli movie to wrap up like 20,000 plot points, kind of like Howl's Moving Castle, where oh, they found the prince, and oh, Howl's saved, and oh, like they wrapped up a lot of stuff real quick in the last literal 10 to 5 minutes of the movie. I was dying of laughter from the possessed rats. Like it's fun when the characters do certain things, and I kind of get like little light bulbs that go off, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, or oh, this will be pretty fun. And it's just it's great stuff. Like it's good. But yes, Tales of Diademia opened up with, I'm pretty sure, with Coffee in like this purgatory realm where she had died brutally in the previous episode, taking like I think 15 points of damage from every type of damage, which there's at least 10, so 150. Like the girl died. Like there's no ifs, ands, ors about it. Like she died. So anyways, where the previous episode ended, the goddess Shar took Joseph, Irthos, Thavian, and I was going to say Fang, but Fang and Irthos are the same person, and Orgy to this shadowy demiplane where she obviously wants to conduct this new champion battle or whatever. So that's how that episode ended. People were dead. And then you come to find out in this season finale for season 1 that there are things happening on my computer that I'm not agreeing with, but I'm just clicking and hopefully the computer doesn't restart. But We open up. Coffee's dead. She's in this purgatory realm, and she gets contacted by her deity, Brigitte. I think is how we agreed that we're gonna say the name. I don't know. Don't quote me. Uh, but she's given this like second chance to kind of get revenge and gain some redemption and finally get like some semblance of control of all the things, all the factors that have been kind of out of her hands since she's arrived in Diademia, thanks in part to her previous campaign that she was in, and one of the members who had a habit of using banishment, I don't know. He kept sending her to different realms, and one of these realms just happened to be our realm of Diademia. And while she was here, I was going to call him Vladdy. Vladimir Riviere was able to give her a special ring, one that had way more meaning to it than what he intended on saying at the time. A special ring that enabled her to stay at this realm without having to worry about going back. And all she had to do was either activate the ring and go back to her world or come back whenever she chose. It wasn't until later that she found that the ring was possessed by a spirit of a fallen maiden who was one of the potential sacrifices for this Shar awakening as it unfolded, of kind of like they use virgin females to serve as hosts for the bodies of these deities, and in this case the body of Hope was sacrificed and brought about Shar. Yeah, so all these things out of her control are happening, and she's finally getting her memories back. She's finally realizing exactly like how she died, what led up to it, who killed her. Like, Ox, I'm just saying, if you're out there in some kind of like shadowy form, like, you had it coming. Like, you had it coming. You did a lot of dirties to a lot of people throughout the days of your life. You killed a bunch of people, and I'm just saying, you had it coming. Anyways, because of this, the setting transitions over to our heroes who were taken by Shar to this demi-plane, and she pretty much says that she's going to conduct this battle, that they're going to have to fight for their lives, and winner takes all. Like, if you win, good on you. If you lose, sorry, sucks to suck. So what ultimately ends up happening is she summons these like duplicates of each of the champions. So there's a duplicate of Joseph, there's a duplicate of Orgy, there's a duplicate of Davian, there's a duplicate of Fang, and all these duplicates are fighting the other individual. But we had to transition to some of the other members who had gone missing or were gone or just weren't there. Anyways, we end up coming across Artis and Maka, who essentially were thrown off the boat or the airship that they were on. Maka was able to make her way back on the airship, and what's his name? Artis disappeared and I think reappeared back on the airship. Like, he got saved by, I think, Cross in the previous episode, landed, and then when shit started popping off, his sword activated and just like got him the fuck out of danger and sent him back on the airship. So he encounters Maka, they encounter the captain and one of the surviving crewmates. Basically, the captain agrees to land the airship back at the Wandering Emporium, which now has been like decimated for the most part. They're like, in 15 minutes, if we don't find any survivors, we're still leaving. Like, we got our iridium shipment, which is the stuff that is serving to fuel this yield dumpster fire, which we're going to find out something interesting about the dumpster fire here in the Diademia Aftermath, but that's later. That's like foreplot, post plot, whatever the plot is. It's after. It's future plot. But anyways, they agreed to stay there for at least 15 minutes. So while they're there, they encounter that Goliath cleric guy that was trying to warn Orgy and the others in the previous episodes that they needed to get out of Dodge, but Orgy was like, he seems kind of sus. I'm gonna do Orgy things. I don't trust him. He's sus. Like, Orgy, we get it. You're bad. Like, cool. Woo, angry kitty. But anyways, Gaza, I think his name's Gaza, ends up saving them. Well, helping them in the battle. Ultimately, it doesn't really do anything because they still mostly get defeated. So Maka and Artis are kind of like exploring this decimated camp, and Artis is encountered by somebody that he thought might be dead, considering there's an image of him dead on the ground. And he's encountered by Monastew, and Monastew pretty much informs him that he's not dead. He just created this illusion that he was so that it wouldn't cause any suspicion his way. And he's cutting ties to like this crew right now. Like, since Monastew joined the crew, his life has been more progressively thrown into danger than he'd ever seen his entire life before then. Like, that's including the mind flayers coming to his town and slaughtering everybody. Like, since he's joined up with Fang and Artis and Heart at the time and Pixel, rest Pixel soul, like, he's seen some shady ass stuff going on. Like, I can't even begin to describe any of it, but he's pretty much like, for self-preservation, I need to get as far away from all of you as possible, so I'm gonna leave. You can come if you want, but like, I'm done with this whole like trying to be a hero thing, because that's not my forte. And Artis tries to convince him, but ultimately he's like, nah, I'm not going. So he deuces out. Eventually his illusion of himself disappears. Maka's able to encounter Gaza and Cross. They're able to resuscitate him a bit thanks to Gaza's healing. Ultimately, Gaza warns them that like they don't need to be going up against Shar, even if they wanted to. Also, before Maka encountered Gaza and them, she encountered Kalamar. And Kalamar is interesting because he kind of transcends over all of my different campaigns. So because he's now made a pact with Asmodeus, he's in this like this niche of being able to dimension door himself in and out of different planes of existence, and kind of come in clutch in certain areas, and then also offer assistance to others in other areas. So Kalamar's becoming way more important than when I originally like created him. So he's my Viago. Love it. Viago can heal? Viago's not a cleric, last I checked. Viago is just Viago. But also, he's much shorter than Viago because he's only a Goliath. He's not like Orc Goliath. But yes, essentially, if you want to like compartmentalize him, he might fit into a little bit of a Viago thing. Except he also said "F you guys," and he deuced out because he needs to head back to Toll Run, where his sister is. Although none of the other party that was in Toll Run, Fang included, informed him about the fact that Fang and Heart and Hope and Artis killed his sister. Well, they probably didn't make the connection, but like Goliath female, he's looking for Goliath female that was in Tolran, like 2 and 2. But she's dead. Like from the first Harbinger attack that happened in Tolran, yeah, she died. So he's gonna eventually, this NPC is gonna eventually make his way back to Tolran, figure out that his sister's dead, and that the people that he helped killed her. Even though it was circumstantial, even though it was out of their hands, even though she looked like an undead zombie-esque person at the time, it's probably not gonna matter to Gaza as he tries and seeks revenge later on, which I'm sure I'm going to incorporate in season 2 of Tales of Diademia. So that's something to look forward to for all you people that are paying attention. Another thing, NPCs taken aside. So Maka is able to reconnect with Artis. Artis is able to convince Cross, more or less, like drag Cross with them to come and offer any assistance he can to try and figure out what exactly happened, because they weren't there when the big battle happened. But ultimately, Maka strikes a deal with Calamar for them to go to this demi-plane that has who knows what happening on it, but he's like, it's a one-way ticket. Like, I can get you there, but I'm not necessarily gonna interfere with what she's trying to do over in that, realm. I mean, I could, but I'm not gonna. Like, whatever. So they're like, it's fine. We've survived worse things, which is true. They actually have survived worse things, but ultimately they get thrown into this demi-plane, and they all encounter that the other 4 are fighting clones of themselves, and through some, interactions, they're able to figure out, okay, which one's the real Fang, which one's the real blah, blah, blah. So, Fang is fighting his other Fang, and the other Fang's got the kind of upper hand on him. Like, Fang's trying to do stuff, but the other Fang's doing it better. And it was all good rolls on my part. I'm just saying, because I was like, I'm using your character sheet, and I'm making him fight you. So, deal with that. So, but out of nowhere, Heart appears. And for those that don't know all the conflict that's happened between Heart and Fang up till now, Heart is a blue dragonborn paladin who basically worked at the same castle with Fang as part of the Triperian Empire. They were more or less tasked with bringing hope to safety. And we all found out that at the end of the season, pretty much they're getting framed for the fact that the princess has been killed. And now this war is brewing. And it's all at the hands of, the king and the empire and all this other stuff. So, they have that to consider. But the main thing you need to take away from Heart and Fang is that they've had this kind of like rivalry thing early on, after Fang did one thing that kind of like really didn't sit well with the lawful good paladin. So when they got the princess and they made their way onto their first airship to try to like escape on this cargo ship, they encountered this young boy who was a halfling barbarian, which would have been interesting to kind of like dive into. But anyways, they encountered this young halfling barbarian who had like really messed up, visions and all this other stuff of like what happened to him, but he only spoke like, I don't know, like goblin or something weird. And Hope was the only one that knew enough languages to like communicate with the kid. So ultimately the kid took a liking to Fang because, barbarian kid and shadowy lizard folk guy, whatevs. But Fang was able to determine that because they were fighting the mind flayers over in that area, the kid might have been, infected with one of those, insect thingies. Well, not insect thingies, grub thingies. I don't know what they're called. The things. The things that go into your eyeball and, swirl around your noggins. So, Fang's only course of action at that point, because they encountered this dragon that was well out of their league. I think a green dragon, adult green dragon or something, who had came and was going to kill them unless they gave him the child, because she could sense that the child was possessed by this mind flayer being, which whole nother future plot, whole nother thing we didn't really get a chance to dive into. But anyways, Fang, being Fang, just chucks the kid at the foot of the dragon and like tries and deuces out, and Heart is like, bruh. How are you going to do this right in front of me? Like, you can't do that. So this causes a bunch of turmoil. Some of the ship that they were on ended up being somebody else's ship. Anyways, that cargo ship gets destroyed, so they lose track of some of their other party members. The kid gets thrown at him. Like, all this stuff is happening relatively fast. Fang is just kind of like on the eject button, like exit, 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 get me out of here type deal. So he's on like the flight portion of the fight or flight. Like, he's not trying to fight anything. He's just trying to get them the fuck out of there. And they're trying to make their way to Vagrant City, which they never actually were able to make it there. So because of this, they make their way to Toll Run. Heart's not happy. Most of the party's not exactly in good spirits. Ultimately, Heart ends up leaving that night, goes back into the cold mountains, searches for where he thinks the others might have landed, ends up bringing back Monastew and Thaven from the brink of death. And what kind of gets underwritten is that Monastew ends up getting this thing called a homunculi, which in this world, in this realm, homunculi are used to infuse or empower the Warforged, which aren't necessarily sentient yet by themselves, which that's a whole another plot that has to get fleshed out in the future. But basically, the Warforged are just like machines here, and they need a homunculi in order to have like some essence of a soul or whatever in order to move around on their own. Cool. So he has his homunculi, gives it to him, gives it to this Warforged that they just happen to find, conveniently in the town that they're in. Convenient. Just saying. So plots are plots, whatever. Anyways, after the Harbinger attack that I spoke of earlier, where all these townspeople in Toll Run end up getting slaughtered, Heart, Artis, Hope, and Hope, Fang, Artis, Heart. Okay, I probably missed Fang. All decide to leave Monastew and Thaven at the inn to recover. Left them a note telling them they're headed to Vagrant City. Like, if they wake up, find us there. And they were like, we got to get out of Dodge, because Fang's still on like, I got to flee mode. So they go to leave. Harbinger attacks. It transforms most of the townspeople into like these grotesque beings. Because they see the grotesque beings coming out of this mist, they go on attack mode just to defend themselves. End up killing most of the townspeople. The Harbinger takes them, the four of them, to the demi-plane, where they end up having to get rescued. Blahgy, blahgy, blahgy. Like, recaps for days. But the Thaven and Monastew are encountered by a man called Omen, who brings along Cross. So Omen has like these powers, and he's able to send their astral forms. So he's able to send Cross, Thaven, and Monastew's astral forms into this demi realm to try and make contact with the others. Because there are only 3 and there's 4 in there. They were unsuccessful at bringing Hart back. So Hart was stuck in this demi plane where time doesn't exactly work like it's supposed to. So when Fang and Hope and Artist come back and they're not able to bring back Hart, and then Omen kind of like deuces out, they're kind of like left in this predicament where like, you know, they can't get Hart. And then all this other stuff starts popping off, so they don't necessarily have time to flee again. And then they end up get thrusted into the Wandering Emporium, where the party kind of like reconvenes and grows as like a separated unison. I don't know. Basically, they're from 2 sides of 2 kind of warring nations that grouped up. And now, because the princess is possessed by the goddess Shar, and now war is brewing because of that, like, it's gonna make some interesting stuff. So Tales of Diademia is gonna be fun, and we're gonna be introducing, I think, 1 new cast member for that one, because we found somebody else that was able to play for Saturdays as well. So that's going to be interesting, because we're going to have 2 very different sides of a barbarian coin, if that makes sense. But yes, Tales of Diademia was crazy. Curse of Strahd was crazy. Waterdeep was hilarious. And it doesn't stop there, because tomorrow we're going to do some Final Fantasy. Maybe this weekend we'll do some Sage Mist. Like, things are relatively changing. So the only thing that's going to be consistent is this dungeon talk every Wednesday around this time. And for it, we're going to talk about the previous week's shows, whatever shows those happen to be. I don't foresee next Wednesday's Dungeons Talk being as excessively long, because there's a lot less to cover. But yes, I might go off on tangent on Final Fantasy alone, because Final Fantasy, like, y'all aren't ready for it. I'm not ready for it. Y'all can't be ready for it. But it's gonna be fun. I think I still have 1 more artwork to do for one of the main characters, and then I'm gonna see if I can do everything in Foundry for that session. But if not, we'll just double back to Roll20 for a little bit until I understand the program of Foundry just a little bit more, so that it's not really too much of a hiccup. And then ultimately we'll end up transitioning over to Foundry full on. Tailspire. So Tailspire, I still have to learn a lot about Tailspire, and I need to watch more videos, Chris. So I need to figure out how to maneuver around Tailspire, because it's different when I'm actually doing just controlling characters and I'm already in a created world and stuff. But when I go into Tailspire and the whole map is blank, I'm just like, bruh, I don't know what to do with with any of this right now. Like, but yes, if you can teach me any of the tricks of the trade, that'd be great. Because right now it's a lot, and I want to use Tailspire for like Tales of Diademia and one of the other ones, but definitely for Tales of Diademia, because that one would probably be really cool, because of how many characters we have and like the dynamics that Tailspire could potentially like unleash on the general populace. But yes, I'm gonna be using Roll20 for the podcast, Foundry for the other ones, and I think I was gonna do Tailspire for Tales of Diademia and Rise of Sage Mist, but I'm not sure. I have to think about it, because if one works better for it, I don't know. I have to figure it out. But basically, I'm going to be using 2 for 2 for 2, just so everyone kind of gets like an understanding of what each different D&D outlet there is out there. I think there's even more than that, but we won't go into like Dungeon Fog and all those other ones because we're going to be here for days. Do the players need Foundry? From what I have been reading, no. So basically I have purchased Foundry. I just have to supply a link to all the players, and then they join in, and then I'm able to like give them player rights, and then they're able to get like rights to their characters and all this other stuff. The only hard part is I need to figure out how to add in all the maps and all the sheets and all this other stuff. But the thing I like about Foundry is because for Final Fantasy specific, with the materia thing, I can really customize it in a way that it would work well for roles and things of that nature, because I think I have Lore's character, which is Moon Elf's character that she's going to be playing as like a template in Foundry right now, and I've given her like materia to kind of like have, and I've been rolling it, and it's like it's easy because you just do like an attack roll, there's saving throws, there's like the damage dice and all this other stuff, and you can kind of like cartel it for the materia specific, so I like that part of it. There's just like a couple of more things about the program that I kind of need to understand, at least from like if I was doing this in Roll20, like I would know what I needed to do to add all this other stuff. So if I can do it on the same level that I can do it on Roll20, then yeah, I'm gonna move it over to Foundry. But again, that's like a make or break. Basically, if I'm not able to do it all this first session, then I'll work it into a future session, and it won't be that big of a deal. It'll just be extra work for me. But it's not necessarily that bad. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be interesting because I like the different feels each of these different programs like give, because it's like, if you haven't seen Telespire is amazing. And if you haven't seen like the cool map effects that Foundry has, like it's so cool. But yeah, it's just, can we roll in Foundry like in Roll20, or am I going to need to use my real life dice? You can roll, actually you can do either because I allow either, but you could do either. Like literally your character will have a character sheet, and I'm trying to go through to make sure that they match. That's the only hard part I'm having right now. But as long as they match over and I can like edit them in a way that it's basically the same thing that you could create in D&D Beyond, then we'll be using those in Foundry, and it'll be probably a lot easier to roll and do all of those things because it's going to be slightly different. But that's going to be fun. That's going to be cool. Let's see. What else am I missing? I slotted Dungeon Talk for 3 hours, but I don't think I'm actually going to make these sessions or this particular podcast 3 hours, because I don't think I can sit around and talk about the sessions for that long. I would basically be reiterating everything. So I'll leave the ground open for question and answers now. So if there's about anything, about any of the upcoming shows, any of the past shows this week, things that you kind of want to see maybe happen, I don't know what the questions might be, but I'll let y'all decide. And let me see. You excited for tonight? Oh yes. So tonight, spoiler alert, I'm going to be debuting as a new character on Realms of Ukador on Fabled 42, so be sure to check that out. I'm pretty sure the timing for it is it's going to be 5 p.m. Pacific? 5 to, what is it? 8? I don't know. 6 p.m. So I'm going to be starting 7 p.m. here. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. tracking. Time zones, man. Like literally all these time zones. My brain is literally constantly flipping through all the different time zones of all the different places that people are in to try and see what time it would be for them when I'm like explaining stuff, because then I'm like, it's a lot easier if I just tell you what your time zone is and then work around it. And then there was this weird like gap. There was like these 2 weeks or something where England wasn't doing daylight saving times, but America had already done it. So then I was like, no, sorry. Like, y'all are trying to give me a freaking, it's bad. It's just, I can't even, I can't even describe how annoying time zones can be. But yeah, so I'm going to be playing a Hex Blood Warlock. And I've played a Warlock before, but I've never played a Hexblood before. So this is going to be super awesome. But I'm going to be playing him every Wednesday from now on. Every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time. Or 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. Mountain time. Every Wednesday. Like, remember that. Because I will. Forever. For the rest of my life. Until I'm like old or ish. Yeah. for a very long time. But that's gonna be fun because I kind of have an idea of how I want to like. It's gonna be fun. I'll just leave it at that. I won't do spoilers for that one. I'll just leave that one as is. But yes, that will be later tonight, so you can check it out on the Fabled 42 channel, which I think I can still do shoutouts. If I can spell. Yes. Oh, y'all were playing Red Dead Redemption 2 last. So, if you haven't already, go over to Fabled 42 and hit that follow button, because that would be great. Like, that would be the best. That would make me very happy. Like, super happy. If you haven't already. And, like, yeah. Just do it. Already following? Oh, Moon Elf, thank you. But yeah, so as not to, you know, keep this going, what do they call it? No, not stare a gift horse in the mouth. I forget the saying. I don't know. The one where you try and make something longer than it needs to be, and you're just like, you gotta keep it short. You gotta keep it short. But yes, if there's any questions that y'all have, y'all can ask me now. Y'all can ask me after stream. You can ask me. I'm making sure I'm saying ask right. I have a habit of saying ax, just so you know. But yes, questions, comments, whatever, send them my way, and I will do my bestest to give a speedy response. I wasn't going to say it. So I was saying axe. Okay, just making sure I'm like, you know, still doing my habits and not like. It's weird because I always have to like accentuate, like ask. Like no one says ask like that. No one. Not even people who say it. Anyways, but yes, if y'all do not have any questions, I will catch you all on the flip side, which soonest you can see me is later tonight. Guess where? Fable 42. Be there. And then come back here tomorrow, same time ish, hopefully earlier, because I started a little bit late today for Final Fantasy 14. Or why did I say 14? That's like, no, not Final Fantasy 4. Final Fantasy 7. The Last Ancient. 7. Final Fantasy, why you do this to me? Why? But yes, it's going to be great. It's going to be exciting. I don't know how much sleep I can get, but I've been on less sleep, so it's going to be fun. But I will catch you all lovelies later. And also, Did y'all notice the intro song was a Vistani song that I picked for Curse of Strahd? I didn't get to play it last session because like they didn't encounter any Vistani people. But I found this song and I was like, this sounds really like Vistani-ish. Like, I feel like they could play this in their little caravan, you know, thingy majig. But I'm playing it again, and we are going to head out. So I'll catch you all later today, 6 p.m. Pacific, April 42. Be there, and then tomorrow I'm gonna switch the time zones again. 12 to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Be here. Just do it. But yes, I will catch you all later. Have a good day.